Hi, today we are playing some Zoo. Okay, so this version is known as the Blue Zoo version. Uh, we call it like that because we play the Zoo staples, the Territorial Kavu, the Nakato, Sino Draco, but also we play a Force of Negation main and the Subtlety main, so we need to play some number of blue cards to be able to pitch those free spells and play as a really aggressive tempo deck. Okay, so uh, obviously we are playing the four new leyline bindings in a deck, and it's a domain deck, so it's must play for these leyline bindings. It does some incredible upgrade for these kind of lists. And this list, the Blue Zoo version of a Zoo deck, is maybe one of my favorites, and it got much stronger with the printing of Leyland binding, because the deck has now has answers to almost anything. We have burn, we have treble flames which deal 5 damage, lightning bolt, fire ice. All of those can finish the game and give that last few missing pieces of damage. We play a lot of counter spells in Stubborn Denial, Force of Negation, Subtlety, plus having the Binding and Fire Ice to tap the land on upkeep. Makes us really good against big mana decks like Tron, also nice against Amulet with a decent sideboard, and pretty aggressive main setup with Nakatos, Ragavans, Cows, and Silence. Okay, so this is definitely one fast and fast tempo deck that really don't use any card advantage, just some minimum card selection with in territorial Kavu, and tries to play the free spells and the cheap spells to put some early pressure on opponent. And that's it. Aside from that, we have really good sideboard. So I play three resting pieces. So the best graveyard hate, um, if available to play. The fairy, of course, for some cascade hate and control matchups. Some disputes for a swarm of blue decks. Some natural state which can help with Blood Moons, but also against Amulet Titan and Hammer and Affinity and Scales decks. Also, Hidetsugu Consumes All and Fury are also there to help with those same matchups, and are really good in doing so. Okay, so I have a pretty good score with this deck. It's around 70% win rate, and I've been doing really well with it. Had multiple 4-1 leagues, and the last league I played with it was 5-0. So we'll just go through the matches, comment some decisions, and that's it. Yeah. Okay. Uh, just let me find the league. Okay, this is it. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, this was the first match. Okay, the bolt up guy, I played multiple times against him the last few days. I knew he's probably on Velomachos Lorehold the creativity with turns, so I immediately went for denial. Turn 1 on hard evidence. That's a jumper and a good card draw for them, so they played Ren, but I had I went for discard land, find charm to give my cow +1/+1, get domain and play Scion, hold force for next turn. Also there on 9 life and I have 9 damage on field and that's it. So really quick game, turn 4 kill, which is pretty decent for an aggro deck, even in modern. It's a pretty quick kill, so followed with some good denial and some stabs and force of negation. Okay, so that's it. That was game 1, pretty quick one. Game 2, my opponent succeeded to put enough turns to win the game. It was mostly because I was kind of too slow. Also had wrong land in hand, so I couldn't play. Sorry, I did draw fetch to play a Scion turn 2. But unfortunately it got remanded. My opponent already was on 4 lands, next turn 5, but I did have the denial and the force in hand, so I was still in a pretty decent situation. And with Tribal Flames in hand, the life can drop really quickly. So it was still a tight game. Unfortunately, my opponent had no, yeah, I just countered that. But played both Nagatal and Scion. My opponent drew a card, and I had my Force of Negation. I tried to cast it on Time Ward, but they had Spell Pierce, and next time they cast the Lorehold guy, and they succeeded to find 3-4 Time Warps in a row, so that was it. Yeah, the new Invoke Calamity, it's pretty much efficient at finding the extra turns, so that's it. That was game over. Game 3, this matchup becomes much easier. Sometimes, and I mean very often, it feels like a free matchup. Because I have this new leyline bindings plus 6 counter spells. 6 counter spells just make this a very good matchup, like 4 denials, 4 forces, all cheap removal, cheap counter spells plus leyline bindings for 1 mana, target their token, their treasure, whatever, just makes this matchup really good. And I think the creativity decks could fall off a bit. Because the binding just seems like a very good card against this archetype, and for now it was kind of difficult to hate this deck, but now you don't even need to hate it, you just have the 4 bindings in a deck, and it feels like unnecessary. It feels unnecessary to even um, hate it with anything, so I decided to kill the token end of turn, put them on 1 life. Luckily I drew into another leyline binding, but I could have drawn a lot of stuff, so I think this decision to put them on 1 life was okay, because they mostly need fetch to find another Dwarven Mine, so I removed that option from them, and it was that which meant they had to have exact Dwarven Mine in hand, or some or create a token, and then have a non-fetch untapped land, which is really hard for them. So I put them in a really bad spot, and that was it. Okay, so that was game 1. Game 2, mulliganed. So you can notice that I mulligan a lot with this deck. You just really need to find. We really need to have two lands that produce four colors. It's really important. So if you're not able to do it, then your hand probably needs a mulligan. And if you just don't take the mulligan at that situation, you will probably end up losing that game. So again, pretty quick aggro hand with Nakatos doing some good job killing my opponent at turn 4. Uh, so just two Nakatos, one Kavu, and a little help from Lightning Bolt. Again, a mulligan, but it's fine. I mulliganed to six nice cards. So again, played Nakato. Turn 1 had turn 2 Kavu in turn 3 Scion plus Bolt, which is really good. Okay, so it's uh, it's definitely one of the plays you really want to have here. So just trying to attack with Kavu, but I tap it. So I accidentally skipped my main. Wanted to play Scion, but I was already in the end step, so yeah, unfortunately I couldn't play it. But it didn't matter much, so I played Scion next turn, but they had, I think, procedure for it anyway, so it didn't make much difference if I played it last turn, I think. Again, they tap the cow. They try to go for it, but I had enough removal in my hand. So I just attack with cow again, I put them on 10 life, do the discard draw, uh, draw another removal, possible removal for their creativity. They didn't have it, so they decided to play the Fable on the second turn, so I just thought I would try to go for the kill. I tried to tap the Shaman token, tried to see where I draw. When I drew into Fire Ice, I had a kill, so I went for Leyline Binding, remove the token. I drew into Stubborn Denial for some safety when I killed them, and just had Fire Ice and Cow to finish them off, and that was it. That was game 2, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, that was game 2, definitely. Yeah, that was game 2, okay. So, game 3. Game 3, I again had a decent hand with Draco, Borrower, Binding, uh, all cool stuff I really want to have. Just a typical hand for this deck, playing Scion turn 2, holding Force, next turn Nekatal, Borrower, Binding, a lot of solutions, a lot of good cards, so just start attacking with the Scion. I find another blue source to cast Force, but they cast their Force, and which was fine by me because I was able to cast the Scion and then Stubborn Denial the Rhinos, and I had Binding plus 2 Borrowers in hand plus Force of Negation, so it's uh, basically all I need to defeat the Rhinos. They play another Rhinos. Here, so I decided not to counter it, but just to bounce the both tokens. It seemed as a better option at the moment, so I don't have to ditch the card. I just killed both tokens, played my Nakatal, and hold force in hand in case I need it for some later rhinos. They attack here for 2. I decide to let damage through in case they go for outburst. And I attack with my Scion, but they had Besiege, but they decided not to go for Scion kill, but to kill the Leyland Binding because they probably had some kill next turn if they went in that direction. So I just attacked with Scion. They didn't block, and I finished them off with Tribal Flames. That was it. Game 2. Game 2, keeping again a pretty decent hand, boarded in some cards like Hirtugu against Rhinos. It's decent option against them. I played second, and I went for Scion turn 2, and they didn't draw third land. I had a good hand anyway to maybe cast Blood Moon. To counter Blood Moon, kill their Rhino tokens, whatever. I tried to go for the Fairy, but they countered, they had force at this moment. Still, they didn't find the third land, so I was in a pretty comfortable position. I was able to just play my spells, play my Nakatas, continue with attacking, hold Hiretsugu, hold Borrower. I countered their removal to make my son live some more. And I had a good hand against their rhinos, but they didn't have any rhinos, so I didn't have much to do, just attack them. I was expecting rhinos at this moment, but I attacked on purpose because I was gonna cast Hiritsugu anyway and kill my Nikato, so it doesn't really matter. It's important I put them on 1 life so they can fetch. I played Hiritsugu and kill both rhinos and then play my second Nikato. And that's it, yeah. Okay, they said GG's. Okay, so game 4 was against Manino Ney. He also played the Rhinos, but he played the 5-color version. And also games were pretty exciting. It was very interesting to play, definitely. There were close games, especially first one. I went for subtlety on their Scion at turn 1 to make me able to attack um, with Dragon. I wanted to play a Day Scion, but unfortunately they played the version with the Fairy Time Reveler and they had it in hand. And I was forced just to kill the Fairy at this point, so I wasn't able to produce 4th mana to subtlety the Scion next turn. I tried to bounce it, but they countered that and killed my Ragavan. I had another in hand, it wasn't a large problem. There were on 2 cards at this point, so I just killed the Scion, but I wasn't able to counter the Rhinos. Didn't even hand the second blue, so they just put the Rhinos in, and that put me in a very uncomfortable position. Didn't have a removal, no bounce, no removal, so that was it, I conceded. and it was pretty tricky playing this after losing game 1. Game 2 was not so hard, but I mulliganed on 5 cards, and it made things much more complicated for me. I kept Scion turn 2 with the Fairy turn 3. Actually, it wasn't turn 2 Scion, I think. Yeah, I didn't have much. I just had the Fairy in hand at this point, but they didn't have solution for it, so it went in, blasted, and I just played the Cavu, played the Scion, plus the Fairy another time, and they conceded. So it was an easy Teferi win. Again, uh, again kept a very good hand with draw into Hidetsugu, but starting hand had Ragavan, had Teferi, Fire Ice, all cards I want to see in this matchup. Okay, so things got a bit complicated here. I decided to go for Teferi immediately, and um, they find the solution on their turn, but that meant they can go turn 3 Rhinos, which puts me in a pretty good spot because I started the game second. I didn't want to play Leyline on my turn to risk them having force because they didn't only had one blue mana, so they couldn't cast it on their turn. So I decided to do it on their upkeep, and in that way, making them available to cast rhinos in response, but it really didn't matter because I was able to kill both rhinos and play my Kavu, hold 2 Fire Ices, Fury, Hiritsugu, and that was it. Manina conceded at that point. And my last game was a Belcher matchup. It's also a pretty favorable matchup if I know what I'm facing. But if I have to also have luck to or mulligan to stubborn denials or force of negations. Um, Luckily, my opponent didn't go for it turn 2, didn't have it. So I was able just to find my steam vents, attack for 3, sorry, attack for 5 with Dragon 2, hold the stubborn denial on their turn. So they went for Airplane Feet, but I countered that with Stubborn Denial. I was hoping that Leyline Binding will be enough to finish this game. I also was holding Bolt in case, yeah, I was holding Bolt in case they damage themselves with land, but yeah, I had Lethal and they conceded. And game 2, I kept the same cards because I drew into hand with force and the blue card, and that seemed like good enough to keep. Also had Ragavan turn 1, which is decent. They went for Desperate Ritual. Turn for Charbelcher turn 2. I've played Force of Negation, sorry. Drew into another Force of Negation, and it was pretty hard for them to do much after that point. So um, they still succeeded almost to win the game. They were pretty close. I played the Flames, put them on 1 life, put them on 3 life, sorry, and which meant that they'll be on 1 life next turn. I tried to counter this, but they had pact, so I was missing the damage here. And luckily I drew into a binding, so I didn't need to go to game 3, and which is good because this matchup they can draw the insane honorable hands. Yeah, that's it. So that's the entire league. Played against two Rhino decks. I played against the Belcher. I played against Creativity. And what is this? Merfolk. Yeah, so all tired decks, all well-known decks. And yeah, that's it. So that's the deck. I hope you like it. Because it's a very fun, exciting deck to play. Um, just playing these big creatures like Territorial Cow, Scion, turn 2, of Makato Ragawan, turn 1. All these creatures are very powerful, and the tempo plays that you make are pretty exciting and skill intensive. You need to counter the right spells, just let go the non-important spells, remove right creatures and let go of non-important creatures, and try to balance all this with some nice sideboard options. And that's it. So that is the video. I hope you enjoyed the matches, and that's it for this time.